Durham region. The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Securing your recycling in a few steps is simple, like bundling your cardboard separately. These bundles can act as a lid for your blue box or placing heavier items such as magazines on top of papers with no material above the rim.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk Politics. I'm Deborah Hutchison in the Rogers TV studio. This week, we are joined by Oshawa Councillor Derek Giberson. Derek, welcome. You are at the Backdoor Mission / Mission United as it gets ready to open for another day of helping those in need. It's been quite a couple of months for you, hasn't it?
It sure has, yeah. A lot of change in a very short amount of time.
For those that are unfamiliar with Backdoor Mission and now Mission United, fill us in on what it's all about.
Yeah, so Backdoor Mission has been here for over 20 years, and it's in the back of Simcoe Street United Church, and in some of the simplest terms, I like to call it a low-tech operation. It serves the most vulnerable in our community, the socioeconomically marginalized. In normal times, the mission hosts drop-ins with meal service and things like clothing. During tax season, there's somebody here to do taxes. There's someone who does foot care, things like that. Food, non-perishables, things like that. But of course, right now, we have had to stop the drop-in component for reasons that everyone at this point is aware of. And out of that, there was some discussions that began both through my involvement here at the mission and my work as a city councillor amongst many parties that deal with that marginalized population, that provide supports, as well as on the political side. And it was clear that they were in crisis, and we needed to find some way, with everything shutting down, a lot of places that were drawing back services, and a population that usually lives every day in crisis that even more so found themselves in that situation. We needed to find a way to get as many services under one roof as possible. So in a nutshell, that's what Mission United is. We have medical staff here from CMHA. We have Durham Mental Health Services providing mental health support and respite services, and many other partners. So that's the short definition of what Mission United is, and what we've been ramping up over the last 2 months, and is now, I would say, fully operational at this point.
Usually, it would take a year to coordinate something on this scale, and you have done it in simply weeks. How did you pull it off?
Long hours, I guess. So yes, you're right. You're probably about right. I would guess that normally a project like this would be something that is put together in a year. You're probably bang on with that. And I would say we're now probably about coming up on the 2-month mark since we first started the very first discussion on it, or when the idea was first dropped in a Zoom meeting amongst partners. And long hours is one way. The incredible dedication of the various staff of the different partners, as well as the Backdoor Mission staff and volunteers, who many of them have been dedicated for years to this cause. I usually, as a board president, I'm a big believer in trying to be fairly hands-off in the day-to-day if you're on the board of a nonprofit. I'm lucky if I'm in here for 2 hours a week normal times, but it has been a lot more than 2 hours per week in the last 2 months. But the way that I look at it is that it's been my way of continuing to serve my constituents as the city councillor for this ward where the mission is located. So I certainly haven't minded putting that time on my side, and everyone else here has been very willing to bring many helping hands together to make this happen.
So many different community associations and groups are involved with this. Kind of proof that if we all work together, things do get done, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sort of lucky to be on the observer side here, because I'm here every day, and as someone who's a non-professional in any of these fields, and getting to see how not only they bring their skills and their talents, but also their compassion and their ability to cooperate amongst agencies. I think that's one of the amazing things about this success, is to be able to see the way that you can have one worker or from one agency or a backdoor mission staff who encounters one of our clients in crisis or in need, and they're able to bridge them right on the spot to another service or whatever that other service is. And for these individuals, that's something that really is different than what they're used to, because it's a lot more travel to get between services normally, and for these individuals who live every day in crisis, that's sometimes in and of itself is a real challenge. So it's quite remarkable to see what the skilled workers do here.
Do you think that this is an idea whose time has come and will stay when things get a little easier in regards to the pandemic?
So we have certainly floated that thought. We haven't had a fulsome discussion yet on what that would look like. We have taken over most of the church building, and because large gatherings currently are suspended under the provincial regulations, I imagine that at some point church congregation members and other users of the building are going to want to start to come back and start to meet again. So it would mean a very hard look at the space, but I think that the point that you make is one that has been observed a number of times in a very short amount of time, is look at how well this works for these individuals. Look at how successful it is. Look at the outcomes. And it is definitely being thought about and maybe discussed, because if it works, and we know that the centralized hub model works in other places, in other bigger cities that have dealt with urban poverty maybe longer than we have, and have more challenges, but also more practitioners in the field. So maybe, as you say, it's something whose time has come here in Oshawa and in Durham for this population. We're still on that journey right now, so we will see.
Your website, Backdoor Mission website, has some incredible facts about poverty, the myths and the realities. And most people don't realize, you say downtown Oshawa, where most of your clients live, and the poorest neighborhood in the Durham region, has a median after-tax household income of $32,500, and that's only marginally higher than Toronto's infamous Regent Park at $29,500. That, facts that blow a lot of people away.
I think that part of the reason that that people don't realize that those numbers exist here, and if you get into other socioeconomic indicators, so things like addiction, people struggling with mental health, we tend to be on par there as well and comparable. So I think that it's just because the scale is smaller here that maybe people drive through, or they come to a restaurant or an event downtown Oshawa, and I don't want to say that the urban poverty isn't noticeable. People do point it out and notice it, but because the scale, we're a much smaller city, the scale is smaller, and I don't think people realize what the the nature of the challenges and the numbers behind it. So yeah, I think that most people are quite surprised and I was certainly quite surprised when I first learned those numbers. So that tends to come as a surprise to many people, for sure.
If there's anything positive about this pandemic, do you find that society as a whole is a little kinder and we're thinking more of people and their situations?
I certainly hope so. I think that it's been a reminder that what we think of as stability and a good, stable, comfortable life is something that has tenuous threads that keep it that way. And something as widespread as this pandemic can completely upend that for any of us. And I hope that people will be able to take this experience and have a look at when things maybe go back to some kind of normal or whatever the new normal is going to be, that they remember that's the reality. And for some people, it's not a once in a lifetime experience, but they really struggle in that state of crisis and disruption every day.
With all the services that you're providing there, how do you make it work financially?
So we have been very fortunate. The first part of the answer to that is that the agencies that are involved here, which also includes AIDS Committee of Durham Region, Lake Ridge Health is arranging for virtual video addictions counseling through their Pinewood Center. It comes online shortly. Carria Community Health has a worker who comes in once a week. Durham Region has their PCOP outreach social worker. So all of those individuals are funded as normal through their agencies. So on that side, that's how that piece is taken care of. And these are individuals who want to be here. I think that's a really important thing to point out, is that this isn't for everyone. You're dealing with a population that has a unique set of challenges, but those who want to be here, they're excited to be here. So that's really great to have that agency support on that side. And then in terms of the facility operation and the costs that come with that, as well as the ramped up scope of what the Backdoor Mission is doing, the region of Durham has been exceptionally supportive in what we're doing here in arranging a federal emergency reaching home grant, and that fund flow through is what is helping us out on the funding side for the facility.
Okay, we're going to stop you there. We are in conversation this week with Oshawa Councillor Derek Giberson, who is also the current board president of the Backdoor Mission, and he is the founder of Mission United. We are going to take a tour of the facility and get a first-hand look at all the good work that Mission United does after the break. Stay with us. More to come.
Securing your recycling in a few steps is simple, like crushing your cans and bottles down in your container's blue box and your box board down in your papers box. This saves a lot of space and reduces the possibility of material blowing out of your blue box on windy days.
The regulars, the guys who keep this place in business. Last week they had something to celebrate. Jason had just finished university, so they toasted his profs, his TAs, his old roommates. Well, they toasted just about everyone. But I worry about and take care of my guys. So even when I know they're not driving, sometimes that means bringing them a little surprise. And then they had a drink to me.
Brought to you by Smart Serve Ontario and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Hey, do you like movies? You know I do. That's why I see all of them. And if you want to know which ones you should see too, check out the latest Cinema Scene reviews and interviews. They're hot, fresh, and delicious, and they're online at rogerstv.com/cinemascene, popcorn not included. This offer is available everywhere. Tell your friends, be the first on your block to click rogerstv.com/cinemascene. It's so nice, we have to mention it twice.
On this brand new edition of Social Life from Home, we speak to the creator of the viral quarantine version of The Simpsons intro.
Plus, our tech expert Karen shares his review of Sony's new wireless headphones.
Welcome back to Talk Politics. We are in conversation this week with Oshawa Councillor Derek Giberson, who is the current board president of the Backdoor Mission and founder of Mission United. And he is taking us on a tour of Mission United today. We are taping on May 21st, 2020. So, Derek, you've turned your camera around so we can hear you, we can't see you. What are we looking at right now?
Yeah, so we're in the main hall. This is sort of the end of the tour in the facility. So right now, and apologies in advance for my camera work. I'm sure that your viewers are used to something a little bit better than what I'll do today, but at least you'll get a look around. So right now we're in what used to be the place where we would have our drop-ins and where, it was basically a social hub for a lot of these clients. But they're just getting set up this morning. And, as you can see over here, there's screened privacy areas for medical check-ins. So there's one of our MDs, Dr. Vincent Ho from CMHA, and they're getting started for the day. And this is where clients would come if they're looking for medical care. So, whether it's wounds that need attention, or if it's they're not feeling well and they need any other thing where you or I would need to see a nurse or a doctor, this is where they would come. So there's some of our healthcare workers there. And so they would come in, there would be a pre-screen over here, and then they would determine what it is that they need today. And I'll just swing around quick back here, because as I walked by, there's also a station in here for ACDR workers, AIDS Committee Durham region workers, who have set up on site for two things. One is to provide harm reduction supports, and also for to connect with some of their clientele as well too, because their clientele are people living with AIDS, so highly vulnerable population. So that's what kind of goes on in here. And now I'm going to do a bit of a wider shot up there. So that's where our clothing is stored. Usually, in normal times, individuals would be able to go up and wander around and if they need some clothing, find some there. Obviously, we can't do that right now. But our workers, who are part of our volunteer team, who set up a station outside, they'll go from the door in here. If somebody comes up in crisis and they absolutely need a pair of shoes or a pair of pants, and they'll go and find something for them and bring that out to them. And then that's also the end of the building, where we have our pantry, which is our non-perishables. That used to be our old kitchen, but we've now moved into the much larger kitchen, and I'll take you down there, which is down the hall.
Okay, so while you're walking, let's talk about the hours. You're open, is it Monday to Friday from 10 a.m.? What about weekends?
So we do meals 7 days a week now. So meals are 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then we'll take a picture. I guess they're just starting to get some things out here in the kitchen. So the meals are, and here, while I talk, I'll just swing around and show some of our food supplies, because we've taken over another space over here, and Trent University has kindly donated the use of these commercial kitchens, because they're obviously not able to have full-scale operations right now. So that's very generous of them. So that's sort of the meal piece of it, but then the healthcare workers are on site from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday. And then we also have washroom service from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and that's 7 days a week, because that is also something that has sort of fallen off the map for a lot of these people, is access to washrooms, because everything is closed.
Correct, and so often you wouldn't think of that. The basic human dignity of having a washroom to go
absolutely.
to. You're right, everything is closed.
Yeah. So here I am now at the end of the hall, and just making sure that no one's in here. None of the clients, anyway. So this is Durham Mental Health Services space, and this is the church's side chapel. So what it is it's quite simple in terms of the setup. It's a rest area. There's beds, some cots, as you can see, and some people who are living on the street or maybe sleeping in overcrowded rooming houses, one of the things that they lack is the ability to just get a couple of hours of good rest, because you're worried that your things are going to get stolen. Maybe somebody is going to, disrupt you, or, sometimes be attacked, things like that. A couple of hours of sleep is a great relief for many of these individuals, but it's also a way of building a bridge with the Durham mental health service workers who are here, because they also provide counseling support. So there's their makeshift counseling table over behind the screen. And this space, it was interesting whenever it was being proposed, because I didn't, I don't have a mental health practice background, and I kind of wondered how it was going to work. And I got to say, I've been quite impressed at how well received it's been. So that's that space. And I was just going to take a peek back into the kitchen here. I don't know if they've got, sometimes it's the most fun when these full of food. So we're 140 on the busiest days, 140 meals get churned out. And because of all the great donations that we've had from Gordon Food Service and Ajax, Feed the Need Durham has been a wonderful support. Who else? Vaughn. He's the fellow that drives the delivery truck around for St. Vincent's Kitchen. He's been doing runs to different grocery stores, Costco, things like that in the area. So our food supply is largely through donation, almost entirely through donation. So they prep these, and one of the things that we're really committed to, and again, as you mentioned before, the things that we often take for granted is these really both delicious but also nutrient-packed meals, because a lot of these individuals, they're used to food that may be, high in sodium, low in nutrients, etc. So there's a real opportunity to continue to build that relationship of trust with them in this facility. The food is sort of a magnet in a way, and then we can get them accessing other services whenever they're here. But it's also a way of trying to get them healthy, because if people aren't rested and if they're nutritionally not healthy, that right there is the sort of the first. If that's the first thing to go, then it's hard to fix all of the other problems that might be in their lives. So that's been a priority from day one. So right here, this is our screening station. So now we're kind of back at the beginning of the tour.
So this is where they would originally come in?
Yes, yeah. So we've set up a new door. It's not the door that our clients have historically been used to coming in, but in terms of the building layout, this made the most sense, because this way, what we do is whenever they come in, we've got helpers here who. So what this woman is doing right now is actually asking a set of questions that everyone is asked on entering the building, and those questions are basically a screening to see if they have any symptoms of COVID-19. So if someone does pre-screen as positive, we still have a tent set up outside, so they can still see a doctor, but they just can't come in the building. But obviously, with most of them pre-screening negative, it means that then from this point they're able to access the services in the facility, and then they're provided with direction to whatever that service may be. And this is sort of like an intake area, information and navigation, just sort of a first point of contact to figure out where they need to go.
So you have all these organizations that are there. Do you use volunteers or have the need for community volunteers to help you in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I would say that when things are busiest here, probably 2/3, maybe at least half of the people who are are here, are volunteers. So it's a very big piece of what we do, and it's easy to find out. Somebody's interested, and find out if a time slot works for their schedule to come and help. They can just email volunteers@backdoormission.ca, and they can get that conversation going from there.
Let's talk about some of the misconceptions about poverty. Primarily, that real poverty is rare and we don't have it here. Clearly we do, and it's not just in downtown Oshawa.
Yeah, so we've done most of the tour, at least the interesting parts, so I'm gonna just flip my screen back around here. I think that's a really good point. And, whenever we first started to see an uptick in the number of tents in the so-called tent city, although it's not really one location, it does move around. And one of the things I really tried to get people thinking on with that point was that although, seeing somebody sleeping rough or seeing, somebody sleeping in a tent, although that's quite a jarring sight, it's important to understand that for every one person who's sleeping rough or sleeping in a tent, there's several hundred other individuals out there who are dealing with some form of housing crisis. The housing crisis that we're experiencing in Canada right now, this is not just an Oshawa or Durham thing, this is Canada-wide. It was something that was a very long time in the making. And the ugliest forms of it, the sight of seeing somebody having to sleep on the street or in a tent, as awful as that is to see, and a very poor reflection on us as a society, there's hundreds of others who are dealing with some form of housing precariousness, whether it's a woman who can't escape domestic violence, or someone who's not in a safe building where the house itself, the rooming house, is not actually fit for human habitation because of fire hazards or other hazards. People that are in overcrowded spaces. So that piece of urban poverty and the challenges of safe, secure, affordable housing is much bigger than just what we see once it has finally landed out on the street. And somebody is out there without a roof over their head.
Okay, and on that, believe it or not, we are out of time. Oshawa Councillor Derek Giberson, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today, and thanks for the tour, and thanks for all that you do.
Thanks, Deborah. Great chatting with you.
Good chatting with you, too. And thanks to all of you for joining us. Until next time, I'm Deborah Hutchison. Stay safe.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Our ancestors came here from France to build a better life. We lived here happily for generations, until the British decided they wanted our land. The men were called to a meeting and then imprisoned. They demanded we swear an oath to their king and took everything, regardless. We were forced from Acadie, the only home we knew. Mon Acadie n'existera plus.
From 1755 to 1763, over 10,000 Acadians were ripped from their homeland. Despite this, Acadian culture endures in Atlantic Canada.